Good evening, everyone. We're going to get started. If everyone can take their seats, please. Panelists, you can just sit where your name plate. Good evening. My name is Ira Childress. I'm the athletic director here at Gulliver. We're excited to have you here tonight for a special event. Just to kind of the order of events, we're going to have our keynote speaker, and then we're going to have the panel, and then we're going to have 30 minutes of breakout sessions where individuals can talk a little bit more intimate about some of their goals and dreams. For us here at Gulliver, events like this are imperative. We believe, from an athletic standpoint, our athletic department, if we're just playing games, then we're not doing enough for our student athletes. And you'll see over the next several months, several events similar to this, because we really believe in the mission of educational athletics. And tonight is educational athletics at its highest with this esteemed panel and our keynote speaker. So this is going to be a real treat for our students, parents, and community members. With that being said, I want to bring up our MC, someone who's an outstanding student and a great leader here for us at Gulliver. This is going to kick things off. Give a warm welcome to Olivia Connor.
Good evening, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us tonight for this wonderful event. I'd like to start off by naming this group of extremely accomplished individuals which make up tonight's panel. Those include Tom Garfinkel, Vice Chairman, President, and COO of the Miami Dolphins, Dr. Wendy Dees, Associate Professor of Kinesiology and the Sports Sciences Department, John Devine, Deputy Sports Editor, Dr. Eric Goldstein, Sports Psychologist, Desmond Howard, ESPN College Game Day Analyst, George Lombard, Los Angeles Dodgers baseball coach, Siobhan Mansfield, Senior Associate Athletic Director, Dr. Renee Miles Payne, Senior Associate Athletic Director for Administration, Zachary Robertson, Manager of Basketball Analytics, Strategy, and Data Analysis, Gabriel Rodriguez, Director of Product for Men's and Women's Run Apparel, and Caleb Thornhill, Director of Player Engagement. Our first speaker and keynote speaker will be Tom Garfinkel. Tom Garfinkel serves as Vice Chairman, President, and Chief Executive Officer of the Miami Dolphins and Hard Rock Stadium. Since his hire, Garfinkel has led the business turnaround of the Dolphins, highlighted by the initiation, creation, and execution of a plan to privately fund more than $550 million renovation of the 27-year-old stadium, the sale of more than $600 million in future contractually obligated suite and sponsorship income, including the in-house sale of naming rights to the Hard Rock Stadium, unprecedented ticket sales, revenue growth, and 4 years of consecutive regular season sellouts, the creation of an in-house creative content team that resulted in more than 200 million social media video views in 2018, the most in the NFL, as well as 5 Emmy Awards and 2 Clio Awards. The winning bid for both the 2020 Super Bowl and 2021 College Football Playoff National Championship game at Hard Rock Stadium, the highest grossing soccer event in U.S. history in July of 2017, El Clásico Miami Real Madrid versus Barcelona, the continuation and growth of the Dolphins Cancer Challenge, which has garnered more than $32 million to date in donations for Sylvester Comprehensive Cancer Center at the University of Miami, and the culmination of a partnership with IMG WME to bring the Miami Open Tennis Tournament to Hard Rock Stadium, with the 2019 debut event setting record attendance in numbers and increasing total revenue by nearly 25%. His operating experience includes serving as President and Chief Executive Officer of the San Diego Padres, Chief Operating Officer of the Arizona Diamondbacks, and Executive Vice President of Chip Ganassi Racing's NASCAR, IndyCar, and Grand Am racing teams. Prior to working in sports, Garfinkel held different leadership roles in sales, marketing, and branding with Miller Brewing Company and Texaco Inc. Garfinkel serves on the board of the Dolphins Cancer Challenge, the Gulliver Schools Board of Trustees, and the Sports Management Advisory Board and the Ross School of Business Advisory Board at the University of Michigan. Garfinkel graduated with a bachelor's degree from the University of Colorado Boulder and earned his MBA at the University of Michigan. Please give him a warm welcome.
First thing I learned today is I got to shorten my bio. Thank you, that was wonderful. I apologize in advance, I'm a little under the weather today, so I actually played hooky from work today, but wouldn't have missed this for anything. So I have my Barry White voice going, I hope that's all right. That's what my lovely wife calls it. So I was asked today to talk a little bit about careers in sports, my path, and then, I'm going to try to be pretty brief, and then I'll open up to questions if anybody has any questions, especially the students. So, first of all, thank you for having me here. It's an honor to be here in front of everybody. I didn't know what I wanted to do when I got out of college, and I just knew I liked sports and I wanted to be around it. I grew up playing football and basketball. We don't need that. Grew up playing football and basketball, and knew I wanted to be around football, basketball, baseball, sports in some way. But I didn't really know what that meant. And my dad reminded me recently that my goal when I was about 18 was if I could just be the director of marketing for the San Francisco 49ers someday, I would have really made it. I grew up in the Bay Area and had the good fortune to ride in the elevator with Joe Montana the other day at the hotel, so that was kind of fun for me. But what I've learned over the years is that, first of all, when I got out of college, I moved to Chicago with some friends and just got a job checking IDs at a bar, like trying to make it less, sleeping on a friend's couch. The bar was next to Wrigley Field, so I figured maybe I'd meet somebody and help me get a job. I would have sold programs, swept the field, done whatever I needed to do. My dad sold toilet paper growing up. We moved around a bit, and so I didn't know anybody. I didn't have any connections or anything like that. I just figured I'm gonna get my foot in the door and find a way to make it work. My dad gave me some great advice. He said, about a year in, he said, "How's it going at the bars?" I said, "How's the interviews going? Job interviews." I've been on some job interviews. I said, "I can't get anybody to hire me." He said, "How's it going at the bars?" I said, "Well, it's all right. I can pay my rent. I got a place with a couple guys. It's fun, He said, "Well, is there anything you do differently if you ran the place?" I said, "Yeah, I'd do this, I'd change this, I'd change that." He says, "Those are really good ideas. Why don't you share those with the owner or the manager of the bar?" I said, "I don't work in the bars forever. I want to work in sports." He said, "It doesn't matter. As long as you're learning and growing, that's the most important thing." So I went back, and I thought I'd slept on it. Went back in the next day, shared my ideas with the owner. And 2 years later, I was running 3 bars in Chicago, one of which I had opened. Now I'm hiring people, firing people, negotiating beer deals, doing marketing campaigns, doing all kinds of things. That led, the very short version of the story is to a job at Miller Brewing Company in the Southeast. Then that led to, got promoted there a couple times, was running sports marketing for 3 states. Then led to a job with Texaco where I was running their motorsports sponsorships and eventually their corporate branding. And then I went back to Michigan, got my MBA. Then got a call from Chip Ganassi to go work the race team. And so then things just kind of compounded from there. But I think the moral of that story is that the first lesson in life really for me is always be learning. So I actually have a giant painting in my office that says always be learning. And now that I'm 50 years old, it's more important than ever. It's really easy to be a sponge when you're 23, 25, 16, 17. But the older you get, the more you have to keep learning every day of your life and looking forward and what's next and what am I going to do next and what can I learn. So that's really the first most important thing. But as I've gone throughout my career, the thing that I've learned about career progression is this, and it's really profound if you think about it and observing other people. Most people think career progression is linear, meaning what's the next, I have to get the next title, a little more money, the next piece of responsibility. I'm a manager, I need to be a senior manager. I'm a senior manager, I need to be a director. I'm a director, I need to be senior director. Senior, I need to be VP. It doesn't matter. And sometimes in my career, I've taken some real non-traditional steps backward to go forward, big leaps backward in pay, big leaps backward in responsibility, big leaps backward in even just the responsibility I had or the title that I had or whatever. And the reason for that was I always took the opportunity. I never took a job because of title, geography, or money. I always took the job where I had the best opportunity to learn and the best opportunity to produce results. And that means in order to produce results, you have to have some autonomy and some resources to be able to do what you do. And in order to learn, you have to be around great people. You have to be in an environment where you can learn a lot, where you're challenged. And so those were the decisions I made, and this is the career advice I give everybody. It's just go where you can learn and produce results, because if you're learning, you're going to be ready for the next job. If you're not producing results, you're not going to get it. And if you're producing results but not learning, you might get the next job, but you're not going to be ready for it. You're going to stall out. So if you do those two things, you'll have choices, and when you have choices, then you can guide your career in the direction you want it to go. So those are really, for me, the two critical things. Go where you can learn, go where you can produce results. I was also asked, what are the things you look for in people that you hire? And there are some real consistent themes there. I think, we really want people, be someone who's a critical thinker, a problem solver, and who thinks differently. I look back on my career and, the promotions I got, or the times when I was able to just advance quickly or whatever, it was because I was doing things other people weren't doing. I was thinking about things differently. At the time, I didn't even really realize I was doing it. But looking back on it now, I go, wow, that was different. And because those things produce extraordinary results instead of incremental results. So you always want to be a critical thinker, think differently, be a problem solver, be someone who's an unselfish team player. I don't need resume builders and people that are all about themselves. We build a collaborative environment. You win in life with other people, you win in life with teams. Hopefully, here at Gulliver in the athletic department, I know that's important to everybody, and that's something that is taught here by the coaches and by all the administrators here, is that you play sports because you need to learn what work ethic is, you need to learn what teamwork is, and competitiveness, and those things that carry on through life. And you win with teams, so you need to be a team player. Be someone who's curious, asks good questions, and is always learning. It comes back to that. I would encourage all the students in here, think about good questions, be curious. What's the best way to do this? Why do you do things that way? When you get into an environment, whether it's with your teachers, people you meet as you go on to college someday and you get internships and jobs and start doing things, be someone who asks good questions and is always trying to learn, because ultimately, look, I'm not that smart, but I have a lot of wisdom now because I've always been trying to learn and grow and learn and grow and learn and grow. And over 30 years, you just get wiser and wiser and wiser as the time goes, if that's your attitude. So I think that curiosity is really important. And I'll close with, what really is most important, I think, not just in your career, but also in life. I tell these students, guard your integrity first. Don't compromise your integrity, don't compromise your values, your principles for things. You will have times in your life and in your career when you will be asked to do those things. You will be asked to cheat or to live in the gray area, to push the envelope, if you will, on those things. It's just not worth it. Don't lie, cheat, and steal. Just, be someone with integrity. The golden rule in life is, treat other people like you want to be treated. The golden rule in business, I often say, is just do what you say you're going to do. And if you do that, you have integrity. And secondly, you build great relationships with people. Invest in relationships with people, because it comes back around. In 30 years doing this, or however long it's been, 25 years, it's amazing how somebody I met 15 years ago, I'm now doing business with again. Or, just relationships matter, and in the end, it's really your relationships, your friendships, your family that matters most, those relationships. So invest in those things, invest in those people, invest in time with them, invest your energy into that, and everything will work out. So that's my advice. It's short. I was asked to, speak for about 10 minutes or so. I think that was about 10. The bio was probably 6 minutes of the 10. It's a little embarrassing. I'll open it up to questions, and I'm happy to answer any questions anybody may have. Thank you. who's got a question? Yes.
So, I think you hear me. So I was thinking, like, what would, in your opinion, what would be the best way for someone who would approach, like, an elevator type pitch? Like, I'm walking in a hotel, and like you said with Joe Montana, I walk into an elevator and I see you, and I want to, like, maybe network a little and introduce myself and, like, what I'm interested in, if I have a line of interest. What would you say is the best way to approach the situation?
So the question was, what's the best way to approach, an elevator pitch, if you will? It's tough. It's tough because the best advice I can give on that is just build genuine relationships with people. If you're, it's simple things. Like when I meet people and they look me in the eye and they have a good handshake and they say hello with a nice smile and they ask good questions, I want to spend more time with them. So when someone's, I have a lot of people reach out and say they want to have a job in sports, and I'll meet them like a friend's, kid or, friend of a friend or something like that. And I always try to take those calls and emails or whatever. But most of the time, they don't have a strong point of view on what they really want. I just want to work in sports. Okay, well, what do you want to do? I don't know. So it's sort of like, if you're really into something and passionate about it, I grew up with World Book Encyclopedia. We opened the page, it was like aardvark, right? So, you kids have the whole world of knowledge at your fingertips. You can learn. I'll embarrass my son. A couple of my sons are here, and my oldest son's into aviation. He's got a simulator on his computer. I'm telling you, if we were on a plane and the pilots ate the bad fish and someone got on and said, "Can anybody fly the plane?" He's got it. It wouldn't be a problem, So he's 16 years old. He can fly any plane, and because he's passionate about it, he's got the whole world at his fingertips, and he's learned everything about every plane. He's got hours on simulators. I think if you're really passionate about it, you're studying it, you're intrigued, you're curious, you're interested, you're involved. You know what you want. You kind of know, like, this is the kind of the path I want to go. And that's going to separate you from everybody else that says, I don't know, I just want to work in sports. So be passionate, be curious, and just be genuine, be yourself. I think those are the most important things in that situation. Other questions? Good question, thank you. Come on now. Is it a shy crowd? I know Gulliver students aren't shy. We got one over here? Yes.
What's your favorite thing about your job?
My favorite thing about my job? That's a great question. I have a lot of things I really love about my job. My favorite thing about my job is actually the team of people that I work with, and kind of getting to work with them, getting to watch their careers grow and their families grow. And I kind of have this goal that I want to have like 10 people that are presidents of sports teams that I've hired. I got one now, and probably another 3 or 4 that are really close. There's a guy I hired when he was 25, who now runs all the business operations for the Chiefs. So he's executive vice president of business ops for the Chiefs. And so to have him there, we worked together, and I think I hired him in 2002. So to have him there in the stadium, and I gave him the best seats in the building, said, "This is your day, you enjoy this." And he sat there and had a great day, and that was really rewarding for me. So those relationships with those people, watching them grow, that's my favorite part of my job. And working in sports is cool because you get to meet a lot of interesting people. You get to meet from generals and admirals to senators and movie stars and athletes and musicians. Not just because they're celebrities, but you get to meet a lot of cool, interesting people that are successful in life, that have their own perspectives on things from different backgrounds, and you can learn a lot from those people. So that's been really cool. That's probably my favorite parts. Yeah. How do you define success? I define success by, first of all, I think everybody should have their own definition of success. I don't think there is a definition. It's one of those words in the dictionary that's almost like unfair, because everybody should have their own definition of what that is. It's a great question. It's Steve Ross who owns the team. He's always looking forward. He's never looking back. If you asked him, he'd tell you he's not successful. because he's thinking about the next thing he's gonna do. And so I still don't feel like I'm successful, in anything. Success for me is, I feel very grateful. I have a great family, great wife, great kids, great friends, a job that I enjoy that's not work for me. So when I think about that, and I think about being 16 years old or 22 years old and thinking about my future and what I hope my life would become, I'm successful. So for me, that's success, that I have those things and that we're healthy and we're having fun and I got great people around me in my life and have a great family. Yeah. Yes?
So when you were entering college, did you know what you wanted to major in, or did that change a couple of times?
Yeah, the question is, did I know what I wanted to major in when I got to college? No. I was originally an art major when I got to Colorado. And I used to draw pictures a lot, and usually of athletes. I still have a bunch of stuff I did when I was in high school. And one summer, I went and, for the kids in here, you're not going to understand this, but I had to go to a copy machine. They still have those, right? And I had to put my drawing on the copy machine, vunk, vunk, to do that. And I wrote, and I had to go to the library, and they used to have books in the library. And I had to get the book that had all the advertising agencies in New York City, because my parents moved from San Francisco to Connecticut after I graduated high school. So I was going out there for the summer, so I got the top 12 ad agencies, got the name of somebody to write, wrote a letter and sent copies of my drawings to all of them trying to get a job for the summer. 2 of them actually called me, and I got a job at a big ad agency in the summer of 1989 in New York City. So I was 20 years old. I took the train from Connecticut. I made just enough money for the train pass and lunch, basically. And I worked at this ad agency that summer as an art director, basically. And by the end of it, I realized I didn't want to do that for them. And then I went back, and my dad was like, "You got 4 years to graduate, so you can't start over at this point." So I had a couple majors that I could still do and graduate 4 years. So I ended up doing a communication degree and graduated in 4 years. But I don't know that, I would encourage the students in here, don't put too much pressure on yourself right now that you got to decide what you want to do the rest of your life right now. If you're interested in something and you're passionate about it, study it, meet people, go out of your way to learn about it. And the more you learn about it, the more your path will start to form. And if you're always learning, and one of the things I left out, but it's really important, work your butt off, okay? It's not that complicated. You gotta go out there and not be entitled to anything and work your butt off and make sacrifices. I mean, I was moving around the country places, I didn't know anybody when I was taking some of these jobs. And my friends were still living where they grew up, hanging out every weekend and partying. All I did was work. I mean, when I moved from Chicago to North Carolina, I didn't know anybody in Raleigh, North Carolina, And then I moved to Charlotte, I knew nobody there. And then I moved to New York City, and I was never home. I was gone 38 weekends a year going to races and stuff. So I just worked my tail off. And there's sacrifices that come along with that. But they pay off in the end, and then you have choices and you can kind of guide things the way you want. Other questions? Do you have one? No? No. Anybody in the back? Over there? Yes.
What is the biggest challenge you faced in your professional career and how did you overcome it?
The biggest challenge I faced in my professional career and how I overcame it. That's a hard one because, there's a lot of challenges that come all the time. And challenges are, you have to look at challenges as fun. That's really important in life. Like when you have a challenge, that's fun. If it's easy, it's boring, right? Some of it's just politics. I had 3 different owners in 4.5 years at the San Diego Padres. That's pretty challenging going through that, Probably the biggest thing was, these jobs are sort of fraught with crisis management a lot, and probably the hardest day of my career we had when I was with Ganassi Racing. We had just signed a driver named Tony Renna, who was 24 years old, and getting signed to drive in the Target Ganassi car, an Indy car, is like getting signed to play center field for the Yankees. It's like the equivalent of a dream come true. In his first test at Indianapolis Motor Speedway, he crashed and was killed in turn 3 at Indianapolis. So I had to call his mom and his fiance, and that was a tough day. That was probably the biggest challenge. Other questions? Can't end on that yet. So is there a dream job, and is Miami a tough sports town? I would say, you know, I'm kind of in my dream job now, and I think, you know, I grew up a 49ers fan. I grew up, you know, I liked the Bears growing up. I always liked the Cubs. Like, there's certain teams that I had an affinity for as a fan. When you get into these, when you know everybody now, and I'm fond of the people at the 49ers, I still like there's some teams I actually root against. When you know the owners and your counterparts and people there's actually some teams that I root against. But you just think of those teams differently now. And I was actually rooting for the Chiefs because of my friend Tyler that works there that I told you about. So you kind of root for your friends now. I'm in the dream job because I have an owner who is kind of rare in sports. It lets me do my job. I work with great people. We get to build cool things, whether that was, you know, redoing the stadium, the tennis tournament, trying to bring Formula One racing here, the Super Bowl, the national championship coming next year. Like, we get to just, you know, I would be so bored right now if we were just a football team. I don't run the football, you know, but I had a big hand this time in hiring, you know, Brian and Chris, and I really believe in those guys, and I work with them very closely now, which I hadn't previously, and that's a lot of fun. So I'm in the dream job. I think the second part of the question was, Miami. Miami's actually, I can't really speak to Miami as a sports town. I can speak to Miami Dolphins fans. And Miami Dolphins fans are awesome. I mean, I've had some tough fan bases in my career, and that were just snarky and negative no matter what you did. You know, you can, you know, give $1 million to charity and then they tweet back at you, you know, go win some games. You know, it's like, it doesn't matter what you do. In Miami, fans have been really fantastic. Miami Dolphins fans are generational, and look, I mean, We've had a lot of years of mediocrity here on the field. I'm not going to hide from that. We're trying to fix it. We're working really hard to fix it, and I actually believe we're on the right path to fix that now. And I would expect in about 2 or 3 years we're going to be really good for a long time. That's the plan. But they're resilient, they care, they're passionate, they're positive, and they appreciate things. And so I think fans here are great. At least the Dolphins fans. I can't speak to the other fans in town, but I've had some real snarky fans in my career, and that's not Dolphins fans. So yeah. Other questions? Yeah.
Foundations that you think growing up, high school, college, that your parents instilled in you that you could say successfully helped you go from job to job?
So what's the thing that my parents instilled in me? You know, I'll say this for the room. I mean, I say this a lot. I think high school football had as much to do with who I am as a man today as anything in my life besides my parents. Obviously, my parents had more to do with it. But my coaches and my teammates and what I learned playing football had as much to do with me. Forget about me working for a football team. I'm talking about me as a man. I think my parents instilled in me, you know, to answer your question, just the things I was talking about. So, you know, my dad gave me that advice, always be learning. That was key. And then the integrity part, you know, don't lie, cheat, steal, treat people with respect. You know, those things are just fundamental to life. If you do those things, you're going to be successful at whatever it is you choose to do. It's pretty interesting and fun for me. I had somebody sent me a video from my high school football banquet from my senior year, and I hadn't even thought about that day. And so I watched it, and I thought, well, I'm crazy. I need to get in touch with some of these guys. So I called my high school football coach, found him online, and invited him and like 5 of my teammates out to a game this year and had them out. And you know, they start telling you stories about yourself from when you were 16, 17. And how I thought of myself and how they remember me is a little different, and it was really telling. You know, I thought of myself as maybe a little dorky, insecure, you know, And my coach is just like, you were the most confident kid I ever coached in 15 years. You know, so I was like, tell me about that, because that's not how I remember me. But I think, you know, I was always motivated, strangely enough, by people tell me I can't do something, like, okay, watch me. Like, that's, for me, that's always been a huge motivation throughout certain times in my life. Like, I just always believed I could go do something when other people didn't think I could. And the fact that they didn't think I could made me want to go do it. Until about probably 4 or 5 years ago, when I kind of just decided I don't really care what other people think anymore. I just want to go do really cool stuff, and if they don't like it, they don't like it. And so I've reached that point in my life where my motivation is much different now. And it's a little embarrassing that that's what motivated me, but it was useful. It was useful. So, any other questions? All right, well, I want to take up all the time, so I just want to thank everybody. Sorry for my voice. I want to say this too, I'm honored to be the speaker here, because you've got 10 other fantastic people here to learn from. And so, you know, this is one of the more, this panel right here could get, you know, 1,000 people at a conference in sports. So I think we're very lucky at Gulliver to have this group of people and be able to put this group of people together. So let's hear it for all of them. Thank you.
We're going to start the panel discussion now, and basically I'm just going to do a little bit of moderating, but we'll take all questions from the audience. We're going to start. I'm going to start with Desmond and ask Desmond a question here. Des, what in your mind, obviously being a player, did you always want to go into broadcasting? And if so, what path took you into broadcasting?
I'm gonna stand up because I'm kind of short. They can't see me over there, so I'm gonna stand up. It's funny you asked that question, because I was talking to my wife before I left the house, and I said, I don't know what I'm gonna tell these people. I really don't. She said, well, tell them they want to get into broadcasting, first win the Heisman, right? Get yourself to the Super Bowl. You still got time. No, but when I was in Michigan, I graduated with a degree in communications. That was my major, and I knew I wanted to do something in film. And people see me on game day, and they ask me all the time, "Did you want to, be on game day? When you were in college?" I'm like, game day did not exist when I was in college. The blind guy on the other side of the desk, Kirk Herbstreit, he was in college at the same time I was in college. So that shit is not like, kids nowadays, they can watch the show like, oh, that's a cool show, I'd love to do that one day. We didn't have, that wasn't my experience, but I knew I wanted to do something in film, and so that was my major. And then after I retired, I ended up getting a job with Fox Sports. It was a show called The Best Damn Sports Show, period, and I would go out there and make cameos. And then there was another show that was on ESPN2 called Cold Pizza. So I started doing appearances on Cold Pizza, and one day the slot opened for game day. So I went up to Bristol, Connecticut with about maybe 3 other guys, auditioned, ended up landing that role. And that was in 2005. I initially started off doing just little things on the demo field, inside the game day bus, and maybe 1 or 2 segments I'd hop on the desk. Back then the show was just an hour and a half. Now it's a 3-hour show, and I've grown with the show. We've changed hosts. When I first joined the show, it was Kirk Herbstreit and Chris Fowler, and Lee Corso, the coach. And now Chris Fowler has moved on to just calling the games, and obviously does tennis too. He's crazy talented. That guy's gifted. But anyway, so he moved on, and now we have Reese Davis, who's an outstanding host, and. So that's pretty much how it went. So I knew I wanted to do something, but the show didn't exist.
Thanks. Questions? Any questions as we move forward? You can feel free to ask questions in between our panelists. Now I want to go to Dr. Wendy Dees, and if you can talk about your role at the University of Miami, and maybe give 2 key components to getting to where you are today.
Hi everyone, thank you so much for having me. I think I'm learning just as much as everyone in the audience, so I'm such a pleasure and privilege to be here. I'm Dr. Wendy Dees. I'm a PhD professor at the University of Miami, and I teach in our sport administration program, and I run our master's program in sports business. I think a couple of the things that I've already learned from Tom and Des and just listening to them, things that resonated, with me in terms of getting to where I am, and I guess advice that I would give to the students is, just be open to so many different possibilities. It was funny when I got done I was a student athlete in undergrad. I played college tennis, and my senior year, I told my parents I wanted to be done with school and never step back in a classroom again. And here I am with a master's and a PhD. So just be open to so many different possibilities. So you may not know what you want to do tonight. I had no idea what I wanted to do as an undergrad other than play tennis and compete. And then also going back to what Tom said, I think it's so important just in terms of the business field that I work in. Everything is really about innovation now, and again, being open to change. One of the, I think, things that I think about every day is the fact that in the business world, the 6 most dangerous words are, we've always done it this way. What Tom was talking about when his dad said, what would you do differently and what would you change? I know when I got to the University of Miami, we did not teach any online classes, which I thought was absolutely crazy, seeing all my students on their cell phone and everyone on the internet. And one of the first things I did was go to my boss and say, why can't we take our programs and why can't we take this incredible education at the University of Miami to everyone? And now we have hundreds of students in our online sport business program, and we're bringing education to people who never would have had the opportunity to step foot at the University of Miami, and we're the first program to go online, and I'm really proud of that. But that was just having kind of that innovative mindset, and like Tom said, always be learning. I didn't think I ever wanted to be in a classroom again, but I eventually, after several years of working in the sport industry, same as Tom, I was in sport marketing, working in corporate sponsorship and branding. I was on in the PGA Tour, but decided to go back and get my master's and get a degree in this area and get training that I didn't have. And I never thought I would be a professor, but here I am, and I think it's really important, like I said, to always think about being open to new ideas and innovation. And just one kind of quote that stuck with me when I was a student, the first time I ever heard this, someone asked Henry Ford, why he invented the automobile. And he said, well, if I had done what everybody else was doing, I would have been always looking for faster horses. And that just really hit me that if you're always doing what everybody else is doing, then you're gonna stay in the same place. We're all here today because somebody did something different, someone took a risk, someone was always willing to learn and innovate. And so I would always encourage you to learn and to innovate. And then the last thing I'll leave you with is, my parents always told me, if you are the smartest person in the room you're in the wrong room. So you never want to be the smartest person in the room. And I'm really proud to say I'm definitely not the smartest person in this room. So I'm really excited to be here, and I'm learning just as much as everyone else, and I truly appreciate that.
Dr. Ryan, you want to talk about internships and the importance of internships?
Yeah, absolutely. Internships are really important. You as students are trying to figure out what you want to do in sports, if sports is even the path for you. So taking your shot and doing pretty much anything, even if it's just taking the stat sheet from the table and taking it up to the scores room. It doesn't matter what it is. So taking the time and doing pretty much anything in sports and getting your foot in the door. We always talk about getting your foot in the door. It is important. And so I had 3 internships that were unpaid out of college to get into this business. And so you have to always be mindful that you might not make a lot of money. Well, no, you will not make a lot of money in the college realm. That does not apply to Tom. But you will not make a lot of money maybe in the college realm. So understand, if you want to get your foot in the door, it's about doing whatever it takes to get in and starting your career, but working through till you get to your passion.
Thank you. Zach, Zach, want to talk about the trend of analytics and the role that's playing in sports now?
Yeah, analytics has grown really, really rapidly in the past 10, 20 years. Started off with baseball, and now other sports are getting more and more of it. Basketball, the analytics revolution started 10, 15 years ago. You can see that in the number of three-point shots that are being taken, very obviously. We've gotten to progress from beyond just the usual box scores we've had since Bill Russell was playing, your points, rebounds, assists, to having second spectrum data now. So we've got cameras overhead that are tracking where every player is 25 times per second. So I'm getting 25 rows of data per player per second. They're not just giving me the points and rebounds. I'm getting every pick and roll, every drive, every player's help defense, their accelerations, the load they're putting on their body. There's just so much data that we have to work with. It's more than anyone can possibly make any sense of. But being able to not only take that data and then run experiments that I find interesting, but the more valuable thing is being able to do that and then communicate it to decision makers in a way that makes a difference on the court. If we run a cool study, decide that we've invented a new stat that we find useful, and then we don't find a way to communicate that to decision makers in a way that they find it valuable, we haven't really done anything. So we've got to first do that work, do the math, do the stats, and then find a way to communicate, hey, this is important, this is going to lead to more wins.
Awesome. George, you want to talk about 3 key components to being a good coach?
Good coach. All right. If you guys have been following sports, I'm guessing I'm going to get a question or something to that matter. But making a difference with players is partly why I got into coaching. So trust for one. Trust. These players trust you. The work ethic has to be there. And then just having the knowledge of working with these guys. But patience is super important. Baseball is a grinded out game. Like we talk about all the time. Kind of embrace the suck, embrace the grind. We're going to play 162 games, 20 games in spring training, another 20 something in the playoffs. So it's difficult, and it's difficult for these players to understand how far they have to go to get to the big leagues. And I started at the lowest level as a hitting coach. To be successful in baseball, you're going to get a hit at 3 out of every 10 times you go up there. So you're failing 70% of the time. There's no other sports that have those stats. So understanding that you're not going to figure it out. There's been a ton of guys not going to figure it out when you first get into the game. I like to consider myself as elite of an athlete as come along. I signed to go to University of Georgia as a running back, and a couple lifetimes ago, 1994, I was going to play baseball and football at Georgia. I was one of the top 2 or 3 running backs coming out. And then I had a chance to get drafted in the 2nd round by Atlanta Braves. And every scout's telling me, hey, you can play in the big leagues. I go down to West Palm Beach, Florida, and I hit a $140 my first year. So I think what helps me be a good coach is understanding failure. I'll never think this game is easy. This is the most difficult thing I've ever done in my life. I'm working on 26 years now in professional baseball. I had 16 as a player, and 10th or 11th year as a coach now. So having the patience to deal with these guys, you got to find something you like about every player. Every player is different. You got to find a way to get through with them. I think allowing the players to be themselves, you're going to get the most out of them. Some players you really got to get on. Some players you got to pick them up, pat them on the back. I love what I do, so it makes it feel like it's not working.
Thank you. Dr. Goldstein, you want to talk about sports psychology and what's the path there if I'm coming into undergrad?
So I'm the sports psychologist at the University of Miami. And so the cool thing about sports psychology is that every sport has their head coach, but I'm the head coach of all the athletes. And for those of you who ever played sports, he'll hit you. For those of you who played sports, if you think about what percent of your performance is due to your physical talent, your training, your conditioning, and what percent of your performance game day is due to your mental headset. And the reality is when you talk to people and they talk about how many hours they spent on the physical, and yet they're telling me 50, 60, 70% of their performance is due to the mental, well, how many hours a week do you spend on the mental? 0. Now everyone says, well, during our practice, we're always working on mental, right? So my role is basically working on the mental training side, developing mental toughness, but not in the way it's traditionally done. So if you're interested in becoming a sports psychologist, really the field you're in is what's called performance psychology. So I have had the, I'm going to call it the luxury and the luck. Prior to working with the University of Miami, I've worked with every top tech company, Google, Microsoft, Apple, Facebook, doing performance psychology. And what is so cool is that when you take a look, there's so much that we can learn in sports from some of these other industries, some of these other areas. When I did some work with Facebook, when they bought Oculus Rift, the VR company, and I was helping them develop their team. Talk about being the dumbest person in the room. They were some of the smartest people I've ever met in my life who could not communicate to anybody. And so the performance side was, and how do you help them communicate these brilliant ideas? And there are so many things that I learned from them in terms of how they maximize performance that I still actually use with many of my athletes. So this is a field for instance. If you want to go into psychology, and if you're not sure, what do I want to do with psychology? When I was getting my PhD, you have to do it 4 years of PhD, 1 year of internship, and 1 year of residency. And when I was in my internship, my 5th year, I decided I didn't want to be a psychologist anymore. I don't like this. I was going to go work at NBC writing game shows. That was my dream. But my commitment was I was going to finish my internship, no matter what. And I'm going to tell you this, that you're going to do some things in your life that you're not going to like. And right now in our generation, we like to call them the microwave generation, if you don't get instant love, we're out. And I'm going to tell you, you can leave, but at least finish what you've committed. Because when I ended up finishing, I realized, I really do love this. I really do have an impact on people. I really am. And I just had to find, how am I going to use this skill set in an area that I love? And that's what I've been doing for the last 25 years. And I got to tell you, in my mind, I'm going to hear all these great, people and all the great things they're doing. I'm still going to tell you, I have the best job in the world.
So, we're going to talk about player development, unique position.
First and foremost, thanks for having this. I think this is a tremendous opportunity. I'm not sure the student athletes will appreciate this right now because I don't know if I would have when I was in your shoes. But for Zach, I just want to know, number one, we'll talk later in terms of Zion. I want to know about player load. And is he going to be able to sustain his entire career in the NBA with how much he weighs? So I do want to find that out from you. And then George, I just want to let you know my 3-year-old can swing a bat left-handed. He was pretty good. I knew at 1.5. This kid had a tremendous cut. So I wanted you to look at some film to see if he has a chance. I wanted to get that out of the way first. But in terms of player engagement, a lot of what he talked about is the philosophy that I live by. In player engagement or development, as we like to call it, we strive to get the man right. We always say if the man's not right, the player will never be right. So it's kind of synchronized together in terms of their performance on and off the field. And for us, it's a combination of both. How do we engage, educate, empower individuals to reach their full potential both on and off the field? And been able to do that effectively. And I want to speak to some individuals in the audience, which is the student athletes and parents, is that there's a couple things to note as you guys are chasing your dreams, your passions, what's going to give you purpose, is that 8 to 10 jobs that you guys will have by the time you guys retire. And the interesting thing is half of those jobs haven't been created yet. And I want to speak to the individuals in the audience is that we talk about innovation, some of those things, is that you guys will have a tremendous opportunity in this life, but you do have to understand is fail quickly, fail forward, and understand that you guys have to be willing, as Tom put, to put in the work. And I think that as this generation, you talked about it, microwave, is that there won't be simple solutions, but I do want to encourage everybody here that's a student or student athlete is to find out what you love. I think you have to serve. And our coach always says this, Coach Flores, is that your greatness is determined by your service. And what he meant by that was this, is that we want guys that are selfless, that serve their families, that are great men, fathers, and husbands, that know how to sacrifice, that not only serve their families, but serve their teammates, and that are overflowing into other people. I got to my dream job in giving myself away to that second mountain, which not many people reach, is by giving myself away and finding something that I want to pursue to help people out and become the best version of themselves. And I've never worked a day in my life either. I can't believe it's year 10 for me. But I'm just excited for you guys to go on your own journeys, willing to help in any way possible. That's what I love doing. But you guys, I want you to understand, go serve. Go figure out what you love to do, work your butt off. But if you serve, you will be full by the end of this thing. There's a lot of people that fill themselves up, and that's it. That's the end. That's the first mountain, and they're done. You won't find fulfillment in that until you give yourself away, which is the second mountain. So I encourage everybody to do that.
Welcome everyone. I'm Siobhan Mansfield, Deputy Athletics Director at Florida Memorial University. I've been at Florida Memorial since July. Previously, a little bit about what I do there as a Deputy AD and CMO Administrator. I work closely with 3 of our teams, baseball, volleyball, women's basketball, and our coaches as a sports administrator. And I also oversee our external areas. My background is in communications. So I oversee athletic communications, marketing, promotions, fan engagement, and I work closely with our athletics director, fundraising and development areas. I also work closely with our life skills programming department and our student athlete advisory committee. My biggest takeaway for you all is don't be afraid to take risks and go off on the non-traditional path if need be. So prior to Florida Memorial, I have a Division I background, NCAA Division I. Florida Memorial is an NAIA school, so people ask me sometimes, because a lot of people you might want to do this as yourself as student athletes, you might want to work with professional teams or the big schools like Florida State, University of Miami. Don't be afraid to go to the smaller schools or the non-traditional startups, because for me, starting out small shop early in my career is where I became really well versed in a lot of different areas at a young age. And I've been at these bigger places like the SEC, the Southeastern Conference, at a time when they were in the middle of their 7th Street College Football National Championships. I worked with Mike Sly, rest in peace, great commissioner there. And I was there when they added Missouri and Texas A&M. But the position of the conference is so great, and I was in my mid to late 20s. It's just hard to grow. People get there and they stay there for a long time. So I had to leave there to the upstart American Athletic Conference for a new conference. That was around the time they split with the Big East. And so that was my first big jump early in my career. Questions from the SEC to the American, to the upstart American, but sometimes you gotta take a leap. I was moving on to become a director at the American. I had to move from Birmingham, Alabama to Providence, Rhode Island. And it pretty much set me on my path here to become a deputy AD at a school. And it's here in South Florida. We're the only HBCU here. Are we familiar with HBCU terms? That's historically Black College University. We're the only HBCU in South Florida. We're bringing football back this fall after 61 years. We're very excited about that. It is, isn't it? And that was one of the main reasons I decided to come here, to leave NCAA Division I FBS, where I was for a good majority of my career. So once the biggest takeaway is sometimes you gotta take those risks. You might have to move around a little bit when you're out of college trying to get your big break in sports. And the other thing is you've got to build your brand so that your more than LOL. So LOL is not laughing out loud, but it's loss of logo. Because I remember when I was at the SEC, I had a lot of people, well, loving what I do, you know, won football tickets and things. I didn't get a lot of calls after that when I went to the American, the Upstart, so I knew who my real friends were, you know? So you gotta know who you are and build up your brand so that you can stand on your own 2 feet, even if you change from company to company. Thank you.
John, what do you guys look for when you're hiring at the Miami Herald?
I'm sorry, could you give me the second half of that?
What do you look for when you're hiring at the
What are we
Herald?
looking for?
Some of the qualities.
Well, there are a couple things we have to understand. Our industry is changing so much. We always talk about how it's delivered. You know, if you ask the kids today, do they get the paper? They're like, do I get the what? And that's fine. But what happens is the stories are still the same. The content is still the same. It's just a matter of the delivery. So what you look for, first and foremost, if I'm looking for a writer, I'm looking for someone who can tell a good story. I'm looking for someone who can communicate with someone. What happens is you will see some former athletes who become writers and columnists as well. And they can communicate about X's and O's and about what it's like to be in the locker room, but they can't necessarily always get someone to open up to tell their story. And when you're trying to give them an open book, you're not necessarily, and people may not think this, but you're not always looking for something, oh, I need to get dirt on someone. You want someone to feel comfortable. You want them to be able to tell their story because each athlete, they go through so much time, work, preparation to get to where they are. There are unique roadblocks and bumps that are unique to them. And you want to be able to have them inspire someone else. Because there's always someone, it could be something like autism, it could be something like, just something that we've had athletes who are homeless. If you remember the young man from Deerfield Beach who committed suicide. There are other, because in part, there was a time of homelessness. And he didn't necessarily have someone he could talk to the way he could, like a therapist. But if that helps someone avoid the same fate, that's good. And not every writer can do that. There are people, Dan Levitard went to the University of Miami. And I've been here a long time. We won't even talk, but I've been here a long, long time. But Dan and I came up about the same time, and Dan was a University of Miami student who worked on campus. He had the ability, because that was the highlight of, the Canes, the 80s Canes, and he had the ability to speak to these guys. These guys were telling, oh, okay, yes, Pell Grant scandal, we're like, yes, we got extra benefits. It wasn't because he was necessarily looking for it, but as they were talking back and forth, he developed that rapport. So no matter what you do, it's important to develop a rapport with other people you work with. A lot of people who we start out with, and now it's a little bit changed, but in high school, like in high school and college, you would take statistics over the phone. I think someone over here was talking about make sure you take it upstairs properly. And I can tell you, as a person who had to start by taking high school results, and you're like, okay, well, he hit 3 shots for this for 15 points. And you're like, well, were they all 3 points? And just going through, when you're on that time crunch, you really reward and you really go out of your way to make sure accuracy is important. So, even when you talk, and I have a child who's 14, 15, hates math. And when we talk about going through math, we talk about how important it is to be accurate and why. And what happens is that goes through all facets of it. When you're someone you can depend on, if you say you're gonna be here at 8 o'clock and they're here at 7:45, 7:50, that's fine. If we have a story from the Super Bowl that's due at 10 o'clock because we're going to press at 10:30 and you turn in at 10:30, 10:45, we have left stories out. And that means you have wasted your time, you've wasted our time. And the next assignment, hey, you're going to the Olympics. You're not going to the Olympics. It's just that simple. Because you have to have someone you can count on. We can always, if you have a learning environment, you can always have someone you can coach up. You can always work on your skills if that's something you really want to do. But your work ethic is most important more than anything else.
You tell me what you do at Under Armour?
No, first of all, thank you for having me, Gulliver. When my brother sent the panel, I saw the talent on the table, and I'm like, I gotta bring something. So this is actually Tom Brady's actual football cleat, but it's the highest expression of what I do, is bringing insights to a product, right, and solving a problem for the consumer. I have 2 pieces of advice for the group, for kids, for the students. Follow your passion. it'll be a lot easier. Just following that passion, it'll open up a lot of doors. And also just don't undervalue something like a skill set that you might have, like a language. You speak French, you speak Spanish, you speak any language. I got hired, frankly, by Under Armour because I spoke Spanish. I got hired to manage Latin America. And then my passion, which was running, surfaced while I was at the company to then move over to product. So every rep you're doing in the pool, running, whatever sport, lifting weights, those are called insights. You learn a mile 5 in heat and humidity. I've run thousands of miles in the streets of Miami growing up here. My brother's talking about the shirt that I've just come out with. It's taken me back to running down the canals in Kendall. It's hot, it's humid. I hated shirts sticking to my body, other than gnats and stuff. The shirt sticking to your body and sweating, that's called an insight. And I bring that insight to product, and you do that every day. You're making runners better. And so now I'm at the point of my career, instead of just making runners better, how do we make running better? Because, frankly, running sucks to a lot of people, right? It's punishment. But we wanted to make it an absolutely great experience. So I went to school for sports management. Didn't know what I wanted to do. Wanted to be a sports agent, something like that. I ended up being Rory, the mascot at FIU for a bit, an event coordinator, walking around doing whatever job. I wanted to be a beat writer for my own track team. They said it was a conflict of interest, so I had to follow the softball team around for a whole season. But just taking those, when we talk about take the opportunities that to take you somewhere different, make you uncomfortable. Don't ever raise your hand for any opportunity, because that's what's going to change your career and set you on a new path. We see so many kids now just think about that promotion. They think about more money. Don't think of any of that. Just raise your hand when there's a project and take it. I took a project with Tottenham Hotspur. Didn't know anything about soccer. I didn't grow up playing soccer. Spent 3 years in London every month working with one of the biggest clubs in London. Blew my eyes about what true high-level athletics is all about, and then came back to influence product when it comes to, say, running apparel. But I thank you for this opportunity.
Questions? Don't be shy. Please ask the panel questions. Questions?
For Desmond Howard, question. When I think of college football, there's nothing that sticks in my mind more than when you struck the pose against Ohio State in the end zone, when you scored a touchdown. I just wanted to know, was that spontaneous, or were you practicing all night to make sure you got it right?
Greatest moment in college football history, that moment right there. So that summer, I was dating a gymnast, right? So I'm dating this gymnast, and I wanted her to teach me how to do a backflip. So I always thought it would be the coolest thing to break out in the open and stop around the 1 or 2 yard line and do a backflip into the end zone, right? So I'm dating this gymnast. She teaches me how to do a backflip. Fast forward to that season, 1991 season. So now I'm a Heisman candidate. As the season grew older, I became a front runner. All of my guys, like in the locker room, as the season progressed, were saying, you gotta do something, man, you gotta do something, But I just did things the Michigan way. So it was like the old Barry Sanders. Act like you've been there before. Get in the end zone, hand the ball off to the ref, turn around and celebrate with the officials. So I did that every single time I scored that season, every time. But I'm from Cleveland, born and raised in Cleveland, Ohio. Michigan-Ohio State game is the biggest game in all of sports. Biggest rivalry in all of sports. So, my guy, he's like, one of my teammates said, you gotta do something special to get in zone today, right? So here I am now, playing against Ohio State. Now I think their whole game plan was, listen, we can lose by 50 points today. As long as Desmond Howard doesn't score, it's gonna be a happy bus ride back to Columbus, I mean, they played their safeties back like they were catching punts. It was ridiculous. It was ridiculous, I'm telling you. If you don't believe me, go pull it up on YouTube. It's crazy. So here I am. I can't get a big play, and I'm a hell of a competitor, right? Hell of a competitor. And I'm like, damn, man, I can't get a play. So anybody who's who's played football before, they know if you're a punt returner, if the team is punting anywhere near midfield, you're supposed to put your heels on the 10-yard line. And if the ball appears to be going over your head, you never retreat to catch it. You let it bounce. Hopefully, it'll bounce into the end zone, and then the offense will start back there from the 20-yard line. Right. So here I am. I had a couple of catches, but nothing big, and I'm like, man, this is starting to piss me off. I can't get going. So my heel's on the 10. In Ohio State, they punt the ball. And so now the ball is clearly going over my head. Clearly. Now I got a decision to make. So I said, you know what? Screw this, I'm gonna go ahead and catch this ball. So as I retreated to catch the ball, I guess I must have caught it like on the 7 or something like that. I'm looking at the first wave, and any returner, if you're worth your salt, you gotta make the first guy miss, if not at least the first wave. You gotta make the first guy miss. So I make the first guy miss, there's a couple other guys coming too. And now, I'm starting to go towards Ohio State sideline. And so now, I say for me to the photographer is the punter. So I'm looking at the punter, and I'm like, okay, now what am I gonna do in the end zone? Right. There's absolutely no way he's gonna catch me. This is a wrap. So I break to the sideline, race past the punter, and as I'm going down the sideline, I'm like, should I do it? Yes, no. If you do it, you mess up, you're sports enough for the wrong thing. Like, this is all going through my head, right? And so I say about inside the 10 around the 8-yard line, I chickened out. I didn't do the backflip. I said, so as I'm crossing the goal line, I said, I gotta do something, And I just did that pose. It was spontaneous. It wasn't something that lasted long, but because of the picture of it, it was frozen in time, so to speak. And it'll last longer. It outlived me. And so the story is I chickened out doing the damn backflip, and I spontaneously did whatever came to mind.
I don't have a story, but we'll get to the Super Bowl story next. Other questions?
I just want to first say thanks for everyone for speaking. Seriously, I've learned a lot from every single one of you. Each your own unique piece of knowledge that I really appreciate. But this specific question is actually for Mr. Robertson. I said a question because I know that now analytics is getting more and more detailed every single day, it seems. And so I was just wondering, in what ways can people or teams use these analytics? And the two ways I'm thinking about, is it used for when you're looking at players that a certain team may be targeting? Is that how deeply is analytics used to see maybe how it'll fit in with the current team's rotation? And how big of a role does it play in safety nowadays and making sure all the players can be as safe as possible on the floor?
Sure. So analytics touches every part of sports now. We work with the coaching staff day to day. For the team who are playing in the next game, what are their tendencies, what are their strengths, weaknesses, ways we can exploit that. With the front office, we're talking about our roster, ways we can strengthen our roster, plans for the off season. But then to your point, we work with the performance staff, with the weight room, with the medical guys, trying to build applications so they can track players' activity, see if there are trends, see if there are causes for alarm, that sort of thing. So we try to work with everybody associated with basketball to give them the information they need to do their jobs a little bit more effectively.
To add to that with analytics from a coaching standpoint, baseball is way ahead of all the other sports, the data we get. And so I position the outfielders. And I get with all the front office guys, they come up with a place to put these guys. Then I double check it and say, oh, I don't like this guy's gonna pull more. So the information we get is unbelievable. It's fast. We want as much information, and it's our job to break it down to the players to tell them how to use that. Cody Bellinger, I can't throw too much stuff at him. His mind can flutter if he gets too much information. A guy like Chase Utley, I can tell him, and he can process the whole thing right in the middle of the game. But to tell you that the information in every stadium, they have cameras And we're equipped with knowing the minute the ball is contacted, when this guy breaks. So his, how fast his reaction time, how much distance he covers. So now you can truly tell. Forever it used to be the eye test. This guy's a good outfielder. Now we really know because we know how much ground he's gaining. From a pitching standpoint, we have spin rates, so we know that the amount of revolutions a ball spins from the time it comes out of the pitcher's hand to the time it hits the catcher's mitt. So a guy like Kenley Jansen, his ball has an optical illusion. It cuts. So guys that are facing him are going to probably try and swing above the ball because the ball's not going to do what your mind's telling you. So it's unbelievable amount of information. For our catchers receiving the ball, who can steal the most strikes. Why does this catcher value more than this other guy? Because he's getting more calls and balls off the plate because of the way he's moving his hands around, and he gets pitches called strikes that other catchers won't get. So we have information on almost everything you can imagine, but it's the way we break down the information to give to the players.
Other questions?
Dr. Goldstein, moving away from analytics. Obviously, with the passing of Kobe, we think about the Mamba mentality. And I would ask you, is that something that is born? Is it something that can be taught when you get kids at the University of Miami, or maybe I run a law firm when I get young lawyers? Is there any possibility of teaching that? Because we've seen all the quotes, we all know his story, and something that we're all in awe of. But from your perspective of the mind, can you talk to us about that?
It's probably the most common question I get. Is mental toughness, are we born, is it nature or nurture? And the answer is obviously there are some people who are just born with it. But really interesting, you can talk about, I do believe that absolutely it can be learned. But here's what's really interesting. In the last 3 years, with what's called functional MRI, where they can actually do MRI imaging while you're doing activities, we have found that there is a place in the brain called the ACC. No, not the conference. It's the anterior cingulate cortex. That part of the brain, believe it or not, is what we are now calling the mental toughness part of the brain. All the research, those people who are rated most mentally tough, when they do activities that increase mental toughness, this part of the brain actually seems to grow and develop. And so some of the really simple, right? Number one thing, if you want to become more mentally tough, it's going to be boring, you've heard it a million times, you meditate. I don't care if you meditate for 3 minutes a day. As you learn to meditate, as you learn to kind of be more in the moment and more quiet, you are increasing your anterior cingulate cortex, and you are helping yourself, whether it's on the field, on the court, or in the courtroom, because we do a lot of performance at the University of Miami. We do performance psychology with their law students. So yes, I do believe there are many techniques, some visualization techniques. There's a lot of things you can do to actually increase mental toughness. And the most recent research shows you will actually have a better job of increasing mental toughness by doing some of these more psychological techniques than having people run gassers or push the 2x4s across the field over and over again.
Thank you. Couple more questions.
Hi, just like what Gabe said, thank you all for coming out tonight and for shedding your wisdom to all of us. But sports broadcasting used to be only men. Now we obviously see that women are stepping into those roles, such as Sage Steele. Even though this question might pertain to Mr. Howard, I'm asking all ages. What do you suggest? What are some suggestions you give to women that are trying to break into the industry?
Did you say it's for the whole panel? To ask me that question, because I'm not a woman, I couldn't sit here and tell you anything outside of what I think anybody should do, period. So male, female, if you want to, I think, Tom hit on it, first of all, make contacts, network, seek internships. I have a daughter who, on her own, she's seeking an internship when she was in college with the New York Knicks. Like, I have no contacts with the New York Knicks whatsoever. She seeked the internship, started to build those relationships. Then the next summer, she seeked an internship with the Baltimore Ravens. I don't know anybody in Baltimore except Ozzie Newsome, and that's because I'm from Cleveland, and he was a hell of a tight end for the Cleveland Browns. Outside of that, I don't know anybody up there, but this was many, many years ago. So she took the initiative to seek these internships, to see what fit what she wanted to do. And, eventually she landed a job in what she loved and followed her passion. So male, female, I don't care who you are, you have to, I will always say, seek internships, make sure you build relationships, network, contact, but there's no replacement for hard work. And she worked her butt off. So like when a lot of her friends were out partying and going to clubs, she was building relationships. She was making sure that she was on top of her game in what she was doing. And I would like to say that, when you bring up the Mamba mentality, you have to understand that's a DNA thing that kid had. You can't develop that. You really can't. Can you develop better habits mentally? Like the doctor said, when I was in Michigan, I used to meditate. I used to meditate before games to the point where I could make myself go to sleep in the locker room pregame. That's how relaxed I was for a game. But yeah, you shooting for like the stratosphere when you talk about that mentality that guy had, because that's just unique. That's very, very rare and unique. But that's what I would encourage males and females who would like to get into the industry.
The ladies in the room, the students that interested in this career in sports, stand up for me. Okay, can you just applaud them? Because what you need to understand is going to be just like this. That room, wherever you go, whatever your passion is going to be exactly like this room. You're probably going to be one of a few. This is a hard business, and you got to love it. So you better make sure that you love what you're doing, and this is a passion, because it's just tougher for females in this business. It just is. I mean, it is just what it is. But you can make it. I'm going to be a Power 5 athletic director. That's going to happen because I'm going to speak it, and it's going to happen, but I'm going to put in the work also to do it. So as you're standing and you're thinking about what you want to do in this business, understand right now, it's going to be tough as nails. You'll be just as tough as that nail.
I'd just like to say that I was in the same position as all of you ladies. I was in my PhD program. I was the only female in the entire program. And I was the only student that was told that I wasn't cut out for research at that time by one of the advisors. And I knew right away that it didn't have anything to do with my performance. It had to do with the fact that I was the only female in the program. So, like Tom, said as well, if someone says you can't do something, then you're likely to do just that. But the one thing I will say in this business, it is changing. So I know there's only a few females standing up right now. It's changing. It is getting better. I don't want to paint a picture of doom and gloom, but I will say there are 3 P's to getting a job as a female in this business. When you show up for an interview, whether it's an internship or a job or a promotion or whatever it is, be the most prepared, be the most professional, and be the most passionate. So I know as a female, I was always going up and interviewing against dudes, and I did not want any job given to me because I was a female, and I would not have taken it if that was the only reason that I was getting offered. I was gonna show up at the door and be just as prepared or better than any of the males in the room. I was gonna be absolutely professional, which it's not fair, but women have to be way more professional in this industry than men. So just develop that habit anyway. It's good for males and females. And then be the most passionate. So I was gonna absolutely out-hustle every dude around. And I knew when I got offered the job, I was gonna get offered the job because I was absolutely the best candidate. And then going back to, you know, having that mindset of just working extremely hard, you know, being innovative and thinking different. And just, again, to what Dr. Payne said, if you want to do it, you absolutely will do that. And don't let anyone tell you any different just because you're one of the few females sitting in the room. You're actually in this room because you're a diamond in the rough, and use that to your advantage, that you stand out and it will differentiate yourself.
So, a quick comment about the first part of the question, breaking into TV and broadcasting. You could start as you are today in South Florida, volunteering or interning at local television stations. And I think you should do that early in your career now to build your network. And I have to say, think of it as building relationships and not networking, because networking sounds artificial and phony, you know? So you just want to build relationships, because once you start, it's like osmosis, it spreads. And so you want to start as early as you can. And to be true to your own authentic self. I think that's the joy in the age that we live in now. Being diverse and different is what we want. And we want different opinions, different backgrounds, different trains of thought. So be true and unique to yourself, and I think you do well in this industry. That's for any woman or male in this field, in the room today, excuse me.
Last question.
So I'm going to use a little bit of my knowledge to bust my brother's balls because I have to, right? But I think this is a good question, right? So as a student athlete that competed at a high level, at both the high school level, collegiate level, and still today, like we have a room full of student athletes and coaches, what would you feel or what could you communicate was one of the most valuable impressions a coach left upon you that has helped you become successful at what you do, whether it be on the field or off the field?
Thanks, Alex. So the coach that influenced me the most actually probably knew the least about the sport itself, but he taught us everything about discipline, hard work ethic, and then just commitment to showing up every day and giving 100%. So I developed the ability to, if I felt crappy on a day, that day I can deliver 100% of whatever I have. If my battery could only hit 90, I'm hitting 90 that day, but I could do that day after day after day. I didn't miss a single practice or meet in 4 years at FIU in Division I running. And that's hard to say. I saw so many kids fall by the wayside, but it's from that one coach I had in high school at Columbus that just drilled us with commitment and passion and understanding you got to outwork your peers because you're not as talented, and just don't ever think you are. So thanks, Alex.
I want to encourage all of our students and student athletes in the room. Our panelists will have a few minutes afterwards. Come up and meet them. I know some of you may not want to ask the question out loud, but please come up and meet them. And with that being said, we're going to close tonight. I want to give a big round of applause to the student athletes. Thank you, and have a good night.